Hi, this is a video to show you my 1981 Honda Accord. It's a 1.6. It's registered. We're here in Colombia, currently in the coffee zone in Salento, in the province of Quindío. It's a Honda model that was launched in 1976. It had a CVCC or something engine, which was one of the first cars in the United States to comply with the Clean Air Act. It's got some nice features, a lot of chrome everywhere, double headlights. It's registered in the town of La Calera, which is just outside of Bogota. I don't know how many kilometers or miles it's traveled in its life. The speedometer goes up to 99,000 kilometers, so it's probably gone around quite a few times. The bodywork's pretty solid. There's not really any major rust on it. So these cars were sold with either a 5-speed manual gearbox or an automatic, which is a bit of a Honda speciality. A lot of Hondas in Europe are sold as automatics. They seem to brag about the 5-speed gearbox here, which is probably because it wasn't so common in cars in the 1970s to have a 5th gear. What else can I tell you? I'll maybe show you the inside. It's got some nice chrome finishing here on the lights just to set it apart. It was a car that was launched after the 1970s oil crisis, and if you look at the adverts on YouTube for the car, it shows it as a sort of small but luxury car that was designed to offer more fuel economy after fuel prices shot up. So this is the dashboard area. It was pretty luxurious for its era. It's got quite a lot of instrumentation here. It has a rev counter, temperature gauge. This is a system here that shows when the doors are open. You can have a test button here to show it all, and there's also a light that shows when the trunk is open at the back. What else? Nothing very fancy in terms of warning lights and things like that. It's got a choke, hazard lights, and a choke system here. This is because it has a carburetor instead of fuel injection, so it helps it to run a bit smoother when you start it from cold. This is the digital clock. It's just flipped over, so I'll show you that again in about a minute when it changes the time. It's a mechanical digital clock and it's quite cool. Heating, you've got a regular heater. I don't have the original radio in the car, but it's got a 4-speed fan, which is pretty powerful and clears the windscreen from fog quite well. So it's got not that many areas in the doors to keep your stuff, but it's got an area here near the gear shifter and a glove compartment as well, which isn't very big, but it lights up at night time, which is quite a nice feature. Another thing that lights up at night time are these ashtrays, which they light up on this white strip here. You wouldn't be able to see it in this light. If I turn the lights on, let me see if you can spot it. Very slightly. They are visible at night time, so it's quite a luxury car for its age, and quite a nice car to drive. We'll go for a little spin shortly, show you the back and the upholstery. I'm not sure if these are real leather seats or some kind of imitation or vinyl, but the finish has held up very well for 34 years of use. In the back here you had rear seat belts. They're a bit of a mess really. They don't retract and they just kind of lie about there, so I haven't really looked at them closely to see exactly how you use them. This is an armrest which comes down like this. No champagne bottle in there, unfortunately, but it's a nicely finished car inside. The car comes with newspaper holders at the back. They're a little bit, they've gone a bit elastic and loose now, but I bought a period newspaper off the internet, just to have in the back here. Okay, so this is the engine. It doesn't say on it, but I believe it is a Honda. I'm not sure what the exact name is, something like CVC or CVCC. It was an engine that was designed to comply with the Clean Air Act in the 1970s in the United States, and it was one of the first cars to be sold in the States that does so, from what I've been able to find out from the internet. No idea how many miles are on this car, but it has had the engine reconditioned about 7,000 kilometers ago. So obviously it was enough to wear out the cylinders, you know, over its life. So I'm sure it has at least 200,000 kilometers on it. And nothing really special here. 1.6 litres, reasonably powerful. We're in the coffee growing zone of Colombia right now, and we've travelled all the way from Bogota. Plenty of power to pull you up the hills. Brakes aren't bad either, which is also very important in this area. Another interesting feature of this car is that it came equipped with power steering, which was probably something of a novelty in the mid 70s to early 80s, because they make quite a lot of noise about it with these block capital letters that you stare at as you drive along, reminding you that it's got that feature. It really does have very light steering indeed, probably because it was such a novelty at the time. They wanted to show that as a selling point, I guess. This Honda model was also manufactured and assembled or at least assembled in the United States, I'm not sure which. And one of the features of the US model, which was slightly different from this one with a different front end, was mechanical central locking. And I believe, I've never seen it, but I believe it's a handle that you would pull up from here, and it would push 4 cables upwards or pull them downwards to lock the doors. So it was a kind of primitive version of the electric central locking that we have now. Okay, so we're going to take the car for a bit of a spin here. We're on our way to the Cocora Valley. It's a really beautiful place here in Colombia. One little feature I forgot to point out on the dashboard is these service lights, which are really interesting because they work, they're not digital like you'd find on a lot of modern cars today. They're actually mechanical, and they flip from green. It's these things here. They flip from green to red after a certain number of kilometers has elapsed, and then you reset them by you push a coin or a screwdriver into these 3 holes whenever you've attended to whichever of the 3 things it's signaling that you should change, such as the oil, engine oil in the middle, on the left for tire rotation, and oil filter change on the right. So let's go and I'll show you how the car performs on the road. Acceleration's nothing special for a 1.6 car by probably by 1980 standards. It really wasn't so bad though. Got quite a few bumps to contend with on this road. Okay, so I'll show you, try and give you some idea of the acceleration. Really nothing special for a 1.6 engine, but possibly for the late 70s. It probably wasn't so bad and within the average of its class. It's quite a reasonably quiet engine if you keep the revs down, and it's a nice cruiser on the open highway. I've got 5th gear, which enables it to do about 70 miles an hour. It's probably about 110, 112 kilometers an hour, just below 3,000 revs, so it's pretty comfortable on the main road. An unusual feature of the steering wheel, and not so unusual in the late 1980s, was these 4 buttons on the steering wheel for the horn. The horn isn't actually in the middle at all, but on these 4 buttons. You would see that in quite a lot of Japanese cars and possibly American cars as well, not in European ones of that age, when they were usually, the horn was pushed on was a button where you push this indicator stock inwards. But here they've got them on all these fussy buttons on the steering wheel. So here's a night shot of the dashboard, and I'll show you the various things that illuminate in the car. The lights aren't very bright in this one. You can notice that the warning lights have, instead of symbols, they have capital letters. That one says beam, the blue one for high beam, which also, I'll just show you the headlights. Okay,
Wow.
so there have the dashboard, glove box, also lights up at night, which is quite a handy feature. And here are the ashtrays lit up. So about the handling of this car, these are very windy roads that we're coming up from Salento in the Colombian coffee zone. The handling is pretty good in this car. It's quite a firm suspension, which is quite typical of Japanese cars of this era. I'm not sure about today. They probably have adapted to make them a bit more European, but it certainly has quite a firm ride, which makes it a little bit bumpy. But it does handle the corners and beat them up pretty well. Probably not as in the same way as like a Peugeot or something, you know, a French car, which are really excellent at that. Driving the car is it's a very nice car to drive. It's got some of the Japanese hallmarks of having very light controls, unlike a lot of, you know, German cars. It's got the gear shift, steering, everything, all of the switchgear inside the car, door handles, everything's made to be kind of light to the touch. Even the clutch, it's got a hydraulic pump system instead of a cable to make it a bit lighter. And it's quite an enjoyable car to drive on a trip like this. It's quite quiet and smooth. So for its age, and at the time, it must have been quite a nice car to own. I should probably just talk less to show the car.
Gringo.
Es de Irlanda.
Lleno entonces.
Lleno, por favor. So when it comes to fuel economy, this car is pretty good for its age. I've been pleasantly surprised at the economy. I'm about to find out exactly how many miles per gallon it does do, because I've just travelled about 500 kilometers on a full tank. So I'll be able to give you the result very shortly. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tour of the car. If I said anything wrong about this model that you know to be different, please leave a comment, and if you ever come to Colombia, I'll be happy to let you take it for a spin.